guys, and welcome to another episode of Caribbean Spice and Southern Charm. I'm your host, Tony.
I'm Gigi.
And I'm Dee Dee.
And we are so excited to talk to you today. Now, we know that March is Women's History Month, and so we've tried to think of a topic or something that we could discuss on this podcast with y'all, and we came up with that we would really, thinking about women's history and, you know, all the things that women do, we really want to focus on rest, right? And why that matters for us, especially as Black women today. And so I think that's what we're going to chat about today. So let's start it with sort of, what were the messages, or what did you learn from your elders or your parents or your community growing up, and sort of about rest, and sort of how does that influence, you think, how you embrace it and how you enact it today?
I think for me, rest always seemed like a luxury. There was always, you worked full time, whether that was in the home or outside of the home. And then you had all of these extra things. You're on the usher board at church. You're at, kids activities, basketball, baseball. You're always going. And then when you see a woman resting, it was almost as though, don't you have something you should be doing? Mm-hmm. And it was always that feeling. And so I grew up with you always need to be busy, or you're wasting your life away. And so, yeah, I think that was ingrained in me as a kid.
Okay. What do you think I guess ingrained, yes, but how do you think that manifests itself for you now?
Oh man, I still have that feeling of always doing things, and it definitely comes across, you want to rest, and the times when you are very intentional and you set aside space, you put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and you're like, I am going to either take a nap, or I'm just going to lay here and read a book, or I'm going to try to just lower my blood pressure for the next hour. You feel like you're neglecting something.
Yeah. Okay.
I definitely feel like it's not restful. It's anxiety ridden almost, because you feel like there's I have a to-do list running in the back of my head.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
It's hard.
What about you?
So for me, there's an intentional day of rest that my family observes. And we actually, during that day, we just don't do any type of work or anything of that nature. And it was ingrained in me that, at least on that day, that we would not do anything. And then on the next day after that, we would get together and talk and, recalibrate. And also my parents, they would actually stay in and sequester themselves and talk amongst themselves, and seeing that it gave me permission to know that, with your partner, you can also seek rest.
Okay. Now, is that cultural, religious, just...
So it's religious, part of it, and I feel like, I don't think it's cultural, because both my parents were from families where they actually had to work and resting. I don't think that, even my grandparents, I don't think they had the luxury of rest, but I love that my parents chose to rest on the weekends and also with each other as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, it's funny. So I believe in naps. I am strong. Listen.
I love a good nap.
Yeah. I will take a nap in the weekday, and naps are not just for weekends. Sometimes it throws off my sleep cycle, so I need to be intentional about when I do it. But it's funny, growing up, my mom, she doesn't nap. So I think to her, that's a form of laziness. She's probably going to watch this and call me about it, but that's okay. So it's like, oh, well, you're napping. Like, again, like you mentioned, Dee Dee, what else could you be doing? Like, what are you neglecting to take this nap? I should also say, I don't take 5-minute naps.
I don't either. I
take mini sleeps. So usually I take a nap and it's like 2 hours later. I'm like, oh, that was nice.
Same.
But I also feel, to an extent, I feel like my body needed it. That's why I was able to do it, And so I think growing up, like you mentioned, it was always, what do you need to be doing? Like, what is it that you could be doing? If you're bored, that means there's something that you neglected to do because you shouldn't be bored, right? And so I think I'm good about it in some instances, but outside of napping, I probably don't I don't rest enough. I, like you mentioned, or I can't remember which one of you said it, but it's hard to turn my brain off. And I do struggle with that. Because even as I'm about to fall asleep in my nap, I'm thinking about something. And I don't think that's how it should be. So yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think if it's, for me, I'm trying to think if it's cultural at all. Obviously, Caribbean, you know, people, you know, like I remember 2018 or 19 when I was doing my taxes, I had 6 W-2s. I think I had more than that, actually.
Wow.
And
Busy lady.
partially, I didn't have 6 jobs at one time, but partially it was I had moved as well. But I was reflecting the other day, and ever since I graduated college, I've always had a minimum of 2 jobs.
Wow.
Even today, I've never had less than 2 jobs. And I mean, I think that's partially needed because inflation, life, but I also feel like it's one of those things, well, if I have the time, why wouldn't I do this? When it's like, well, you could just enjoy the mortgage that you're paying, you know? So yeah, so I think, yeah, so definitely, yeah.
So do you feel like that's cultural to have multiple jobs?
I can't say that, but you know they say Jamaicans always got 2
I
jobs.
know.
And now I'm not Jamaican, but I mean, Bahamian, you know, like I think it sort of is, because again, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? Like, you know, what else you got to do? Rest,
Right?
Exactly. But that's not, and I think, but you also, I think, just thinking about like the historical roots of it too, right? Like, Black people didn't get rest days. We didn't get PTO. We didn't get vacation days. And, you know, it was like, well, you go to sleep and then you wake up the next morning and you on somebody's field, you know, cultivating something. So I think it is ingrained in the culture as a whole. And I think we've done a great job of getting away from it a little bit. So in my background in healthcare, we always say that leisure in the Black community is a public health concern because it's not something we do. I worked with a young lady in New York, and she was creating games and cards, like play. She was trying to do like play for adults with a focus on people of color, because it was like,
Wow.
we don't do that. Like, we don't have, you know, like, again, it's changing. But when you think about, like, historically, when you think about older white men, for example, right? They get older and we equate golf with them, right? we don't really necessarily historically equate that type of leisure and rest and joy with our grandparents, right? Like our grandfathers and stuff. No, they worked. And then when they work, I mean, like it's just different. So I think it's truly, I think it's truly ingrained. So yeah, what do you think are some of maybe, I mean, I guess we touched on it a little bit, but what do you think are some of like just like practical or day-to-day barriers that you face when you think of, well, I want to rest?
For me, it's time. Sometimes I don't prioritize rest because I'm like you said earlier, there's other things that I could do. There's other things that I could work on, or there might be that. So I think time is my biggest barrier.
Time, but also tempering others' expectations of us.
Okay.
Because when you create the idea that you go, when you slow down, all of a sudden people are like, what are you doing? So, because there's expectations that you're always going to be doing something and available and ready and willing. And sometimes you're like, no, I need to stop. So, yeah, I think sometimes it's tempering expectations. Not only others, but our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, the expectation that we're supposed to be going. No, we don't have to be.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, because for me, when it's time for me to actually go to bed at night, I'm like, oh, I could do this. I have a little burst of energy. I'm going to clean my house. I'm going to work on something that I haven't thought about in 2 weeks. Like, exactly. Yeah, so I agree with you on that.
I don't get those bursts of energy. I get those in the morning. If I wake up really early, that's like my most productive time of day, and to get housework and stuff done. So, Yeah, but fair. I know there's a quote by Audre Lorde. She's, I think she was from New York actually, and she talked about how caring for self is not self-indulgent. It's actually a type of self-preservation, and that's why it's like a political statement, right? And that ties into what I was talking about earlier with like slavery and just the expectation that we're workhorses, essentially. Have you all ever heard of Trisha Hersey, Rest is Resistance?
No.
It's so she's the NAP minister, and if I said anything, don't quote me. But she has a book. The name of the book is Rest is Resistance. And she talks about just historically how people of color, and honestly, it's not even it. I mean, it's geared towards people of color, but I feel like it's for everybody because it talks about like this hustle and grind culture that we're in the United States, and how stepping away from that and not being so concerned about lining somebody else's pockets is actually a form of resistance, and knowing like self need and identifying that we need to rest, we need to recharge. You know, you can't, what did you say, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? We have to be able to recharge and reset, to be able to then do our best work or to present ourselves best, forget work, for our family, for our loved ones. And I love that you said your parents were able to, even after that Saturday or day of rest, be able to do it the next day and just still be together, because that's more intentional. Because that's not a religious thing. That's just, we are going to do this today. So I think that's special. So yeah, and I think we also have to think, when you said that, what are different forms of rest, right? Because I talk about napping because that's what I like to do. But like even what your parents did is a form of rest. So what other forms of rest do you think you indulge in or engage in?
So for me, the one that I am the most proud of in this season of my life is actually taking a rest off of social media. For the longest time, I really felt like I was addicted to Instagram. Like I love Instagram because I'm a photographer in the baking. In the baking.
Inside joke.
But for me, I loved Instagram because I felt like I can look at different images and try to mimic certain poses, and I just love how it's curated. But for me, in this chapter, I've actually been off of Instagram for almost 3 years, and I miss it. But it's important for me to take the things that are, and remove the things that are barriers to my work or my well-being, and that's what I've done. So to me, social media rest is one of the most important that I've done.
I think being intentional about putting more of the things that bring you joy and aren't a deterrent to rest in your week, like scheduling those things, whether that's like, for example, I have a movie day planned with a friend. We're literally just going to watch a movie together and eat snacks, and that to me is like a way to rest, because it's a decompression. It has nothing to do with work. It has nothing to do with someone needing me. It's really just a fun day. And so being intentional to have more of those times, like taking my dog for a walk, or just less grind, more peace.
Okay. And before I comment on that, I wanted to pick up on something that you just said. You said, I believe you said, taking time where someone else doesn't need you, right? And so again, historically is clearly the word for me for tonight. But I think when you think of, thinking about these political times that we are in, and some of the rhetoric around, even, let's say, with my vice president is and has not done since the explosion of whatever we want to call this that's happening. And I think that's so, I think it's silly, it's stupid, but it's typical and expected, because I feel like historically It's like the Black woman has to come and save the day, right? And I'm like, well, why she gotta do anything? She tried to do something y'all didn't want to do it. Like, well, you wanted to, like, you know what I mean? But it's like, why would that even be a part of the conversation? And I don't want to make this about politics, but I mean, like, I feel like, why is it that we as Black women oftentimes, or how do you feel like we as Black women have just been charged with always being the one to do something? Does that make sense?
We've so often culturally been the mother of something. We're
of
the mother,
everybody.
We're the mother of everyone. And so I do think sometimes people do look to us to be the fixer, the saver, the doer, the thinker,
the wet nurse,
the everything. But wet nurse can be so figurative, but also literal. Like, you're expected to be that for a massive group of people,
right?
So yeah.
But how do you think that's messed up? How we rest too.
So to me, it makes me look in the mirror sometimes and say, well, how come am I not doing more? And that's not how it should be at all. We should have the luxury of taking rest and taking pride and carving out that time for ourselves. So this is a plug for Dr. Amen's book, Be Happy. And what I love about that book is he gives different tidbits on different ways that you can actually build happiness in your day. If you love spending time with your friend, then you should put that on the calendar and take that form of rest every month or every 6 weeks and actually plan it. Because when you plan for it, it's more than likely going to happen.
Right.
So I really love that book for those tidbits on how to boost your well-being, but also carve out rest for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. Like, we have, so in my work, we have, like, access to everybody's calendar. Not access as in you can, like, see things, but, like, you can see, like, when someone's busy, when they're not busy. And sometimes people will, like, put stuff on your calendar. That is a pet peeve of mine, but that's the work culture, and that's fine. It is what it is, but I struggle with that because I'm like, you don't know what I'm doing or why I have this 30-minute break. I get it. I am working 8 hour, whatever, 7.5, whatever it is now, day, but I feel like that is almost like a boundary for me. Like, you don't just plug stuff onto my calendar. Because here's the thing. I might have a full day. So, for example, on Thursdays, historically, I'm busy, like doing something, standing up in front of people from 8 to 12. Don't put something on my calendar at 12:15.
Right.
Because, like, I mentally am not there. I can't. Like, I might be in my office, I might be at work, but that doesn't mean I have the bandwidth or even it's the desire, So I feel like we need to be mindful too of how we ask people to show up for us, because that's the same thing, right? Like, it's like, yeah, we have to rest, but we also don't want to be that person that's causing somebody else to not be able to rest. Or we talked a little bit about it the last time, like being too much. Like, asking too much out of your friends. And it's the same thing, right? Like, it's like, that's their rest time. That's my, I carved out, give me 30 minutes to decompress, drink some water, go to the bath, and so that's my pet peeve. I don't know if that's how it is for you all. I would imagine probably not so much for you, Dee Dee, but I don't know, like, if, like, people just stick things on your calendar.
No, sir.
Oh, well, never mind, because she clearly,
go ahead.
is something, because I figured it's just 2 or 3, so I don't know.
Well, it is in the sense that our staff takes the phone calls and they set the appointments. And so I'll look at my calendar at one time and it'll look like, oh, this week's going to be pretty easy. And then I look at the calendar 30 minutes later and it's just like, oh, great. And so I think, so like after you get out of your 8 to 12 session, what I've learned is if there is something that I need, if I know that I need a break, you may have to plug that into your calendar so that they can't do it for you. So for me, like, for example, my goals, like meeting my goals and being able to do those things that I find joyful means that I need to plug that time in so that they can't book over it. And so for me, one of those is like Tuesdays at 10 or maybe 10:30 depending on the time change. But I'm going to have my Spanish class. If you book an appointment for me, I'm going to ask you to move it.
Fair.
Because that's my time.
Yeah.
Like, and so if you want to plug it in at 12 o'clock, if you want to plug it in at 2 o'clock, okay, I'll make it work. But this time is my time. And sometimes I feel like you have to be stern about what you need, because as many times as you may ask people to understand what your needs are and please respect what those needs are, sometimes people just don't want to listen because they want what they want.
Yeah, I have started doing that.
Yeah.
Like I've started putting like plugs, like it's like I just put something there, but I just want
just to make it blocked.
But here's the funny part about it, and then I'll let you talk, Gigi. But now they want to be able to see the calendar. Like not everybody.
You don't even
but
know
like
what I'm doing.
Exactly. But what I found out is that you could technically set it to private. But I'm like, these would be loaded and everything could be private. They'd be like, well, what you doing? Because everything's because like I even put in when I go to the gym, right? And so I'm like, I don't really want, because I put it in as a reminder for myself as well. So I can't put some like crazy like titles, then I might forget where I'm supposed to be. So now I'm like, now it's just gonna be private because I like to go in the mornings on Monday. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. It is what it is. But no, yeah, we're not there yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay. So for me in my current role, I don't have that as an issue right now. But something that I do like that my company does is actually have 5 minute. Like if a meeting starts at 12 o'clock and goes to 12:30, then we end the meeting at 5 minutes earlier.
12:25, so that people have that 5 minutes. Yeah,
and I love that. I really do love that, and that's a part of our culture. Something else that I did want to ask both of you is, have you communicated that to the members of your team?
Oh yeah, somebody put something on my calendar. I was like, hey, no. Hey. Yeah, I was like, no. And it's funny, what's funny about it, the person that did it, they had just started working there. So like, I think it was within like 2 weeks of them working there. They put something, and I was like, hi, this doesn't work for me. And then I just said, going forward, if you, let me know and I'll let you know what my calendar looks like. Because sometimes I don't put everything on there. That's what I said too. So open space may not be an open space. I've been told I'm very direct.
No, but in this world you need to be, because I feel like a lot of people...
In South Carolina?
but and sometimes Southern people have to accept direct doesn't always mean rude.
It does. No, it's not
like,
rude. It's
just
not.
Because somebody's being direct and they're not like literally dripping with sugar does not mean what they said was rude. You just have to accept what they said.
No,
like,
I agree.
An open spot does not mean an open spot. Come to me first.
The open spot is not your open spot. That's my open spot.
An open spot doesn't make me available.
No, not
come and ask me first.
So no, I have. I have. I was gonna ask you something similar. Like, do you have like set blocks where you're like, only schedule me 10 to 12 and then 2 to 4 or something like that, and I need the rest of the time, or is that not an option?
I think mine is a little more fluid. They recently scheduled me for a 4 o'clock call on a Friday, and I was like, why? And so that kind of stuff just irks me because I'm like, I don't want to be on a call at 4 o'clock on a Friday. You mean tell me that's the only time all week long they can make? Okay. So I do communicate that I really don't like, whatever day of the week it is, I don't like late night.
Girl, that's late night, 4 o'clock on a Friday.
Late in the afternoon calls. Because they never last as long as
and not initial consultations and stuff, especially.
So we don't really do that. The initial consultations, well, they do sometimes. They'll schedule me. Our consults are always on Wednesdays.
Okay. And
sometimes they will schedule me for one at like 4 o'clock or 4:30. And the kind of cases that I have, if you schedule it for an hour, it's gonna take an hour and 45 minutes, and so no. And I'm already driving 30 miles. I was like, now I'm looking at you real sideways because I want to go home.
No, listen, I get it.
But I do try to accommodate. I understand that people's schedules are what they are. You try to, but if you do that to me every week, we're gonna have a conversation. So yeah.
No, I agree. As well as like even just talking about that, I'm an early person, and I know a lot of people aren't. And that's not my fault. So
I feel like you looked at me when you said that.
No. Actually, no. Oh. But I just mean, so like when I have to be physically at work, I'm usually at my desk between 7:15 and 7:30 in the morning. Even when I'm at home, the days that I'm home, I'm usually opening my email by 7. Because again, like I said, mornings are best for me. That's when I have the most clarity. I don't want to talk about anything difficult at 4 p.m. I'm done at that time. And I think, I wish there was a way to sort of have that. I mean, I guess I can try. I haven't really tried to have that communicated well. Like, I don't expect you to meet me at 7:30 in the morning, but it's like, listen, my sweet spot then for us to meet is going to be like a 9 to 1 or 9 to 2, and to really get people to understand that, because I think it's also like we're in 2025. We shouldn't be stuck and confined to this 9 to 5 mindset. Like, you have to be fluid. And if it's not something pressing, if something pressing comes up later in the day, like you mentioned, that's fine. But like, it's just because you work until 6 o'clock doesn't mean I work until 6 o'clock.
Right.
So, and because you show up at 10 or 11, yeah, I don't do that. My day ends in my mind at 2:30 because I've been there since 7:15. And that makes sense to me. So I mean, I feel like we went on a little bit of a tangent there. Okay. But I think we were talking a little bit about what each of us do for like rest. And I think what I miss is I don't feel like I really get to tap into my creative side as much as I used to. So I love to dance. I love to dance. And I haven't found spaces to do that here, and not just like typical like creative types of dance, like exercise dance, aerial dance. I love that type of stuff, and I haven't really found that here. So that's something that I would like to tap into. I do enjoy travel, and I think that was something that I talked about with somebody as well. So when we think vacation and we think PTO, it's like, oh, well, where are you going on your vacation, right? And it's almost, I think we've made it, I don't know if this is the right term, but I feel like we've made vacation, classist almost. It's like, oh, well, you had PTO and you went to Augusta for the weekend. Oh, well, I went to Greece. I mean, and I might be a little guilty of that because that's how my brain works. I'm like, I'm going on vacation. I'm going, But I feel like rest doesn't have to be always associated with something luxurious.
Right.
Like that, right? Because, I mean, a staycation, again, in the house that I'm paying a mortgage for and sitting down watching some TV, drinking a glass of wine. I think that, I think that's rest. So, but I enjoy, what are some, I guess, and we talked about it, but just like for the people listening, what are some other like practical self-care things? So for me, it would be like reading a novel or getting a novel from the library and just finishing it in a weekend. Like that, I love that.
So for me, I find solace in the beach. It's my happy place. I love being there. It's funny that my niece and nephew, they're 9 and 6. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm speaking to them on the weekend, they're like, "Oh, you at the beach?" Because they already know that that's Auntie's happy place.
Right.
Even in the wintertime?
Yes.
Okay.
So it depends on if it's like really frigid outside, then I won't go. But if I really feel the urge, I will put on my rain boots. I will put on my North Face, and I will be out there with my coat.
But are you like, do you sit and like that's what I guess I mean? Like, do you sit or is it more like just walking along the waves or what is it for you?
So walking along the waves, and for me, I love putting on my rain boots and splashing around a little bit, and then I might be listening.
Oh, like so you be at the beach splashing in rain boots?
Don't knock it till you try it.
I mean, if it keeps that cold water off our feet.
Exactly. But something else, because to me, no. But for me, it gives you the sensation of like still grounding, and grounding is a good part of being rested as well.
Yeah, I love walking barefoot in the sand. Yeah, or even on dirt. I can't do it here, but like on the ground. So like growing up, I didn't do it, but I had cousins in the Bahamas, and they would be barefoot all day. I didn't really understand it because that's not how my mama was. But like they would be outside playing like on the asphalt, and they'd just be barefoot. And I'm like, y'all got some strong feet. It'd be hot. It's hot in the Bahamas in the summertime. They just be barefoot. They had. I wonder if they still do that.
I bet you they feel more grounded with doing that too.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. But I walk bare feet on the beach. Y'all, tangent. So I was visiting my mom. So my mom lives in Florida. And I was visiting my mom and her neighbor. So my mom doesn't like to drive on the highway. So getting to and from the airport is always a production whenever I go to visit her. She's gotten better. But so her neighbor knew somebody who drove cars. And so she was like, oh, well, such and such will take you to the airport, whatever, right? So, like, think Uber, but a little bit cheaper, and it's somebody that they know.
That's good.
Why this man gonna pick me up and he was barefoot? Yo! I was like... And, like, no, well, here's the thing. So I wouldn't have necessarily realized, because I sat in the back, I wouldn't have necessarily known he was barefoot if he didn't come out the car to put my bag in his back trunk. I was like, this man don't have any shoes on. It's like, y'all,
I would have lost it.
I was just like, what? I don't know. And so I told my mom, I was like, you know, I have shoes on. I don't know
I would have had a hard time not saying anything. I'm like, you just out here with no shoes on, huh?
And I think it was... cultural, I do. But I just didn't know what to do. Like, we were in Florida. Like, you know, like...
That's
I will say he was a foreigner. I won't say where he was from because I don't want to, like, you know. But it was just so random. And I'm like...
That would feel weird to me because the only time I've ever driven without shoes on is if like I went to an event with shoes on, like heels that were far too high.
Oh yeah.
And I was in them for far too long, and I'm driving home with no shoes on because my feet can't take it anymore. But other than that,
but it's not even the driving. I don't think he had shoes in the car. I think because again, remember he got out of the driver's seat to put my bag in the trunk,
so he could
barefoot.
Put shoes on if he had
right,
shoes.
because I sometimes, like you said, like if I'm on heels, I typically don't drive in heels. It's like a mental thing for me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know, I have this weird thing that the heel's gonna get stuck and then whatever. So I'll like naturally just take them off. Mm-hmm. But if I get out the car to put something back in the car, I'm gonna slide my foot in the shoe. And I was looking at it, like when I first saw it, I was like, I looked because I was like, wait, are his shoes just brown like him, and I just don't see him. Like, you know, like I like like does he have on Jesus sandals? Yeah. But they're thin.
This really was a whole tangent,
but it was a good tangent though.
What is happening? So anyway,
this man in Florida.
And he got me there safely. He seemed nice. Yeah, that's all we'll say.
Okay,
where were we before that? What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Girl, I don't remember.
You lost me with the shoes.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we were talking about practical ways to have self-care. So yeah, so reading, going to the beach. What else do you think you could offer our listeners?
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like books. Audible is one of my big favorites. And although we're grown people, I still find pleasure in a good puzzle.
Oh, I love a good puzzle.
And if I put on an audio book and start doing a puzzle, I just feel my blood pressure lowering. I feel my all the thoughts and stresses that I've had go away, because it's really just me and the puzzle and whatever that good book that I'm listening to. So the book club that I'm in, we've been reading this really good book.
I saw that.
Yes, everybody's loving it, and I just love the fact that the protagonist is an attorney, a black one at that. And so I'm like, yes, give me this book, please. So yeah.
I just remembered I also really enjoy singing. Everywhere I have lived, I've joined a choir of some kind. I grew up singing in school choirs, church choirs, so it's ingrained. And so here I am part of a choir. We meet once a week. I missed it this last week, but even though it's not nearby, like when I go, I just feel better. I just like to sing. I love music, and I think that ties into the dancing thing. For those that know my mom, that makes perfect sense why I have a love for music. So that too. So yeah, I think it's just not just thinking like grandiose trip or overseas, but it could even be things even small, like what you all were talking about, like having those boundaries at work and learning how to say no, right, and being okay with that. It's okay.
Exactly.
No.
It's a complete sentence.
Yes. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
So something else too is if I'm not close to a beach, because I've lived where there wasn't a beach. So finding solace in poetry or even coloring. I know coloring is something that seems kind of rudimentary, but in reality, when you are coloring, a lot of people, that was the most peaceful time of their life. So if you're doing something stressful, taking some
bills.
time, or
Sorry.
Wow.
bills. Sorry. You're good. I just had to stop for bills. But yes, coloring is something that I definitely find solace in. And then also audiobooks. For me, for the longest time, I didn't realize it, but whenever I started listening to audiobooks, I had to speed up the pace, because if I listen to it slow, it just drives me crazy. But if I speed it up, then it helps a lot.
Pretty much, just actually told me that the other day, that she speeds hers up to like 1.5 or sometimes even 2, depending on the
type of book.
narrator.
Yeah. I'm listening to a book now, and it's not a great narrator. Like the content is good, but the narrator is a little. So I might try that, because I'm in chapter 5, but we're struggling. But back to bills. I saw this meme again. Tangent. I'm on a tangent tonight.
And it's okay.
But I saw this meme that said that my bills are so grown that they're called Williams. I'll have to send y'all that. I'll have to send you all. It's like I got too much bills. They're like, it was so funny. I remember when I read that, I cackled. I literally cackled.
So girl, they're called Williams.
Yeah.
That's real.
So we reached out to some of our listeners, and we asked them to share some of their personal stories of either being successful with rest or struggling with rest. So Gigi, do you want to share a couple?
Yes. So one of the ones that actually resonated with me the most was learning to choose you. So one of my close friends, she said that learning to choose you is also a form of rest. And then also making sure that you carve out time for yourself is important as well, because a lot of the time you have your children, you have your partner, you have work, you have so many things that's on your mind, but taking that time to actually choose you. And sometimes when you start to choose yourself, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a real struggle, and that struggle is super real. But you don't have to feel obligated in that season of your life when you start to choose you. And that, it spoke volumes to me.
Okay.
And then also, the same friend said that taking on somebody else's emotions can be a lot. And to me, it's a choice. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with rucking, or something that people do in the military. They take like a lot of weights and they put it on themselves and they'll go walk for miles. And it's supposed to mimic when you're in battle and you have to carry a bunch of weight. So somebody I was dating actually used to do that for fun, and he used to look forward to doing that with his friends. And they would go on the beach and do it early in the morning, and I just thought that was very interesting to me. But when I think about other people's emotions and rucking, to me it's the same thing. Choosing to take people's emotions on is a choice. And you could also choose to unburden yourself, depending on what it is. But you have to take rest to think about it and let it go.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else stood out?
So also spending time with yourself is what another listener said. Sometimes, like when you spend time with yourself through rest, you can come with different insights. You can actually have different moments of epiphanies, and without taking that step back, it's hard to kind of see from a bird's eye view without taking that rest.
And I have a question. So I know that you and I are both single. So I find sometimes that because I do reside alone, I have a lot of time to myself. So I don't know if it is definitely different to take time for it to be by yourself, but I feel like sometimes for me, rest is the opposite of that, because I'm always by myself unless I'm with friends or at work. So for me, rest, I try to go to more that creative or that social type of rest, like like you said, hanging out with friends or having a game night or something like that, because sometimes I feel like unless I'm intentional about it, like I almost have to plan to truly rest by myself. So sometimes it's more stressful, because then I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm resting for like 20 minutes, but then I'm like, well, shoot, I gotta do this. Like, you know what I mean? So I wonder, and even when you were talking about Instagram, that sort of resonated with me a bit, because I feel like sometimes because I am alone, I use those tools to get that engagement that I would get if there was somebody else in the home with me. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And so I feel like I don't think I'm addicted to it, but I do definitely use it to procrastinate. Like it's nobody business. Like, yeah, like I'll just pick up my phone and be like, And I'm trying to get better about that. I can't though, because these Microsoft authenticators. Like I'll leave my phone in the room. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go work. And then it's like, well, you gotta tell us what we just sent to your phone. So I'm like, well, now I gotta go get my phone. So, but yeah, so I wonder, so for me, sometimes being alone, if I'm gonna truly use it as a rest time, I have to either put everything away, like not like where I can just grab it, like my computer or something, and I have to almost have to plan it. So I don't know if that's really rest. I guess it could be.
So to me, something that I did, because I was on a sabbatical for a period of time, and I intentionally, when I woke up in the morning, I would actually just lay there. And I would kind of think and meditate, and also manifested certain things that I needed in that season of my life. But I feel like that was one of the most happiest times of my life, because I carved that time out for myself. So as of lately, I've been doing that a little bit more, and I've been more intentional than I ever have been in any point of my life. So to me, that's also kind of a form of rest that I've taken, just to be more mindful, because being mindful is a form of rest.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that too, like if you have those times that you've carved out specifically to rest, are there activities that you could do that could better your health, better your rest, like meditate, as she was saying, put pen to paper, whether that's writing goals or writing poetry or even just writing out your thoughts. It doesn't have to necessarily be full on journaling, but just, writing out some thoughts so that you can be more, utilize that time to actually rest.
Yeah. And I think that's like the perfect segue, actually. So I want our listeners to think about how can you build rest into your day, and how can you be intentional about it, right? So we record every other week. So maybe take the next 2 weeks and think about how you can incorporate one of those things that you just thought about into your day, or even if it's not day, right? Maybe at least 1 or 2 times before we meet again, you can think about how to incorporate that. And if you want to share it with us, that would be amazing. Our contact information is below. But if you do something, you put it on social media, feel free to tag us at Caribbeanspiceandsoutherncharm and let us know sort of what it is that you did to take time for yourself, especially during this Women's History Month. If you're a guy, you can do it too. But yeah, let us know. All right. So, I think this was a really great episode. I thank you all again for listening to us. How do we want to end this? Is there any final takeaway that you have to share?
So for me, I definitely plan to be more intentional about actually getting rest at night. Okay. Because I noticed that if I don't get at least 8 hours, I'm a little bit groggy the next day.
8 hours? That sounds amazing.
But yeah, I'm definitely I'm tasking myself with by the next time to get more intentional about my rest.
Yeah, that's a good one. What is our one thing
that we're gonna do?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I'm having my movie night, so that's my one thing.
Here's
already planned.
No, that's a one rest thing.
Okay.
That's a one rest thing. Let me see. Oh, that's hard. So I think for me in the next 2 weeks, trying to think what I have going on. I'm actually going down to Florida next weekend, so it's not really rest. But I think what I will do, I think I'm gonna try, and I've done this. I'm gonna sleep without my phone in my room, because I have a habit, like if I wake up a little early, like before I actually need to get out of bed, I will like pull up my phone and it's like, because I don't want to get up, so I just like pull the phone and I look at it. So maybe I'll try to be more mindful about that and not starting my day with all that, like that barrage of information and light and all that stuff. So I think that's gonna be my thing. Yeah, I think that's gonna be my thing.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think my takeaway though is, I have no idea exactly how the phrase goes, but basically like, if you don't take care of your health, your body will force you to. So you have to rest. You have to take care of yourself, because if not, you're gonna be forced to do so at some point.
No, I agree. Right.
So one thing I definitely want to share, my mother, I just hear her voice just saying this, and it's a little bit grim.
Okay.
But
it's okay.
She used to say that stress is literally the #1 killer, and it's true.
It is.
Because when you're stressed, you're in a hyper aroused state, and you can't think clearly. But when you allow yourself to have your parasympathetic system kind of slow you down, then you're able to think about things in a different way. So that's one thing I definitely feel like I wanted to mention to our listeners as well.
Yeah, get out of that fight or flight mode.
Exactly.
All the time.
They're breaking that stress cycle.
Yeah. So thanks again for watching this week's episode.
Stay spicy.
Stay soulful.
And stay rooted. Until next time.